last session of the day, and we are going to take another little trip. So fasten your seatbelts. Put your chair in the full and upright position. And we're going to go to Ghana. So I invite Charles. Charles Adu-Twumasi. Did I say it well? Did I say it? The Twumasi? Did I get it?
Yes, you got it.
Okay. Welcome to Charles. Charles is working in the Bible Society of Ghana. So welcome.
Thank you. Is it to the sideways? Okay.
Yeah, you do this. It's coming out. Say something about how happy you are or something.
Okay, thank you very much. We are grateful for this opportunity to be here, to share with you some work we are doing on trauma in Ghana. I'm in Ghana, just started trauma healing program just about 2 years ago. And so we are quite young in this program. But we can recollect some initiatives that were done some few years ago, about 10, 15 years ago by SIL Ghana in developing the trauma program. And so we have two programs in the trauma healing. We have the classic and we have the story-based program. And the classic, we have it in the churches and natural groups, like the prisons, like schools and churches, natural groups. But the story base is actually one program which is quite new to us and in a particular context, and we'll be sharing with you very soon. And so these are women, we call it the Story-Based Trauma Healing Vulnerable Women Project. And I'll just tell you a little bit about why they are vulnerable. A brief overview about where the project is in Ghana. It's in the northern region of Ghana. And we have hundreds. This project is targeted at women who have been accused of being witches. And in the sense of men being wizards. And the northern region is not too developed. Quite a lot of Muslim population. We have about 5% Christianity, but Ghana's Christian population is about 71% of the population. But in the northern part of Ghana, we have a strong presence of Muslim there. And the Muslim religion has weaved so much into the traditional setup. And so sometimes if you are not even a Muslim, you want to identify yourself as a Muslim. And so this program, the story-based program, is targeted towards these ladies. And what happens is that these ladies are accused for one reason or the other. If somebody has a dream and thinks that I saw a lady in my dream consistently, and because I saw her consistently, and it is linked to probably a certain challenge in my life, I just go up to the community leader and speak to the community leader and say that I keep seeing this particular woman in my dream. And so I think she's a cause of whatever I'm going through. The woman will be brought before the community leader, and whatever process they take her through, she will be proclaimed either as a witch or not a witch. If she's proclaimed as a witch, what happens is that she'll be maltreated, and sometimes some of them are killed, some of them are maimed, and so the only option for that alleged person is for her to ask her way to go to a camp which has existed for over 2 centuries in Ghana, in the part of the northern region, and they are scattered all over the place, and it's called the witch camp. And these women are sent there, and they live there under the supervision of a chief priest. And averagely, you find between 50 years age for a woman there. And usually when they get there, I mean, they will go there with either their family. Sometimes when they are moving, immediate person of the family will follow and might also stay with her or not, or the woman alone. And when she gets there, she has to build her own hut to stay in with the assistance of other inmates in the place. So the camp become like a safe haven for most of them. Conditions in the camp, quite worrying. Sometimes they have to walk a distance to go and get water. Sometimes they have to be at the mercy of the chief priest to get food. Basic health facilities is a challenge. I told you they have to build their own home, so you can see a lady there, quite elderly, very weak, poor clothing, so sometimes we have to organize clothes for such ladies, and some of them are given portions of land so that they can farm, and also when they go to the camp with some of their children, or relatives, they are engaged in some petty trading. So fortunately, if you have such case, you would be, your child or whatever would be able to take care of you. And so, and again, poor family relation. Just a little bit about our story base. We've been able to set up about 10 healing groups in 2 of the camps. And just 2. We have to date, I'm told that we have about 7 camps all over dotted in the northern part of Ghana, but we have the story base in 2 camps, but we have 10 healing groups for now. We've been able to train 14 apprentice facilitators, and we've been able to conduct a convening session already in the northern part of Ghana. With the help of Harriet, we've been able to do that story. It's called the Ama story. The Ama story is very particular to the issue that the women are going through. And so the story runs through the core lessons. And so Ama is declared as a witch, she's suffering, blah, 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 and it goes like that. We are still doing some revision on the Ama story, and Harriet has given us a lot of work to do that, myself and Geneva. She never stops giving work. We have the advanced training for the apprentice facilitators, hopefully in next 2 months, and Geneva and myself and someone else will come so that we'll go through. We are yet to translate the booklet into the local languages, and also we've done the recording, but we are thinking that this particular story can be put in an audio form so that it can meet the needs of the general northern population, because I mean the issue keeps recurring, and so there must be some knowledge about what is going on, and especially for those who normally accuse these ladies. Before Storybase came to the northern part of Ghana, we have interventions by social partners. They come with social interventions, I mean, providing housing facilities, giving some of these ladies some helps to, I mean, social intervention by some of their social groups. And then we have local church visits. I mean, the camps are within communities. So we have churches around the communities that do visit those camps and then give them prayer and counseling. And then we also consistently, the government, sometimes this is a scar to, the government. And so every time and every year, the government is trying to find ways and means to close the camp. But anytime there's a decision to close the camp, social actors are always very active. Their voices are so loud. Don't close the camp. Because if you close the camp, these ladies will not have anywhere to go. If you have not been able to prosecute, if you have not been able to deal with the accusers, why do you close such a camp? Because if you close them, we are going to have more ladies being killed. And so social actors are always fighting against the government from closing the camp, because the place become almost like a safe haven for most of them. And And then also we've had some of these social actors very loud on protection rights and also prosecution of offenders. So when it comes to the notice and those actors hear about it, they raise a very loud cry on it. So that is about it. So we've done quite a few work, we are quite young in it. But I have some few stories I want to share with you. And this is Nimba, and she was accused to have blocked all effort for a family member to be successful. And the family member just saw her in the dreams and made the allegation. And because of the allegation, she was pronounced a witch by the community and was beaten. And so she requested for the family to send her to the camp so that she wouldn't be beaten to death. And in her own words, I want to prove my innocence, because when we speak to the chief priests in those camps, they claim that when you come to the camp also takes you through a process of verification, whether you are a witch or not a witch. And you are given something to drink, and if you drink and you behave in a certain way, then you are either one or not. But the chief priest always tells us that about 85% of them that comes to the camp are not what they are alleged to be. So this woman said, I want to prove my innocence, and eventually was proved innocent by the priest at the camp. And she's been living with deep hurts and also blaming always the family members, because when you have your family member taking you to the community leader saying that you're a witch, that is very hurtful. And she feels her life is nothing. But when she joined the healing group, she started a process, a part of new beginning. And she's forgiving herself and her family members, and she says that I've forgiven them all. We have Mercy's forgiveness journey. Strangely, Mercy was quite young when she came to the camp. And usually you find the elderly going to the camp, but this time we had a young lady. And Mercy was pregnant, and when she was cast out of a village because her rival blamed her for being the cause of her burying.
Rival is co-wife.
Co-wife. The man is married too, and Mercy probably appears to be the first wife. And so the co-wife was not giving birth, and Mercy is pregnant, and so you are the cause of it. Or maybe she could be the first. And her husband also abandoned her, and when the rites were performed, she was indicated as a culprit. And so she became terrified, and after being lynched almost, she was brought to the camp. With the help of the inmates, she delivered a baby boy. So that is an arrow there, and you can find her. And she attempted suicide on 2 occasions because she can't understand why she's here and why she should be accused for her rival's childlessness. So the healing group actually helped her, Mercy, to speak out her pains and also embrace the path for new beginning. And it's not easy, but I've forgiven them for my own good. I feel human again. She came to the camp 3 decades ago with her 2 children. She was accused by the community of killing a young boy with sickness. And she was found guilty. She's felt stigmatized, discriminated, neglected, abandoned, and even loss of dignity, coupled with depression. And the church has done what they could, but her case remained the same. So when she joined the healing group, she could say that I feel like a human being again. So these are some of the issues we have identified in Ghana, especially in the northern part where the story base is going on. And strangely enough, we got a comment from a young man who said that if they release his mother from the camp, he would even kill the mother on the way back. So, it tells you why these women shouldn't go back home, and they feel that this is the place where it's good for them to stay. And so you realize that even one of them said that if I go back and someone die again, they'll bring me back to the camp or kill me. Trauma healing is such a powerful ministry for the Bible Society of Ghana. And we have so much ideas what to do with trauma, especially the classic and the story base. And since we are just young and growing, we are just laying the foundations very well so that we can then take it off in a very great way. And so you have one of our board chair, a vice chair of the board of the Bible Society, and he could say that this is a major ministry for the Bible Society. And so we believe that this is a good program, and the Bible Society is in for it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. I hope it's all right.
It was beautiful, Charles. I just want to read John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And it's this contrast. I mean, how many ways can you steal, kill, and destroy? We've heard lots of them. So let's be agents of the other part of the verse, to give life abundantly. We're going to, whoops, there we are. Thank you, Jerry, you're wonderful. We're going to talk, we talked yesterday about the different, in the advanced track, in the experience track, about, oh no, in the morning, progress to date. I said there were beginning projects. It's like the seeds have just been started to sprout. The projects that were underway, the plant is getting some root system going, and then the mature the experience or mature projects where it's producing fruit, and it will continue to produce fruit year after year. So our question, of course, as Thaddeus has asked and others have said, is how do you get from a beginning project to a mature project? So in just a moment, Dana will be talking to us a bit about ideas about mentoring, which is a huge part, but I also wanted to just let you see this that has been developed. And if you look at the large circle, we call that very bullseye Generation 1, the very first equipping session that is done in an area or a country. And if you look at the left column, it says 35. It's made up of a maximum of 35 people. They come, they do their initial, their healing groups, the advanced. And when you finish the advanced, maybe some of them will drop out. Some of them will become healing group facilitators. For those of you who know our lingo, that they would lead healing groups. Others would become training facilitators and be able to train others. And in time, some of those might be master facilitators to really take responsibility for the program. And those numbers of how many drop out and how many become healing group facilitators and training facilitators will vary. We used about 6 people dropping out and about half of them in the other categories. So that middle that circle in the middle of the large circle is that first equipping session, the first cohort of people trained. And we're referring to that as Generation 1. And one thing that we're really focusing now in the way we run programs is to use those people from Generation 1 more intentionally to have Generation 2. So helping those people go from learning it, leading their healing groups, to now training others. And that step of what does that take? How do you mentor them? How do you get them? So rather than, I think for some time, even though we might have had this in our mind, we would train people here, then we would train people there, and we were going to train them. Now we're much more intentional about training people here and helping those people train people there so that they can gain the competency. So that's just, I think that graph is on our website as well. With this projection, with these numbers, and we have a spreadsheet, you can predict however you want. And Thaddeus, you could track how many people. I would love it if you would track the people you've trained, how many of them have trained others. With this projection, you could probably reach 15,000 people from one initial cohort. It would be 31 equipping cohorts altogether. That's what we have time for, and now I'm going to ask, I'm not going to ask you what your questions are. I hope at least you have the idea. Now we're going to ask Dana to come up, and here she comes, and talk to us about ideas about mentoring. Thank you so much, Dana.
Thank you. We have had many discussions about how that potential in that graphic depends greatly on the mentoring piece. So we wanted to take just a little bit today to get a lot of your feedback on your challenges so far that you've experienced in mentoring and the successes. And so we can learn from you, and that we can share also with you some of the emerging trends that we're seeing in effective mentorship in this program. So for those of you who are facilitators, you recognize the handbook, and you know that at a certain point in the handbook, it tells you as a lead trainer at a training session that one of your responsibilities is to assign mentors. So you'll find in your handbook, assign a mentor to each facilitator. Mentors stay in contact with their facilitators, giving them encouragement and ensuring they have what they need to succeed, and co-facilitating with them if possible from time to time. Often a mentor is one of the staff who has trained the facilitator. So that sounds wonderful and it sounds easy. But for those of us who have done a training of 35, 36 people, we know that it's really challenging to figure out how are you going to effectively mentor that number of trainees, especially if you yourself are doing many trainings every year and suddenly you have hundreds of people that you're supposed to be mentoring. So I want to learn from you, and we want to learn from you. We're going to discuss at your tables, a little bit about your experiences in mentoring so far. I know that many of you have not yet gone through this program and you think, what am I going to say about this? We'd actually love to hear from you because many of you have experienced being mentored or being a mentor in a different type of program. And we can learn a lot from what other programs are doing in effective mentoring. So we'd like to take about 8 minutes at your tables. What difficulties have you encountered in mentoring, either as a mentor or a mentee? And then, what have been your best innovations in mentoring? So if you can have one person at your table, write these things down, because afterwards, I want to hear some of the answers, but I'm not going to have time to hear from everyone, and I'd love to collect these papers afterwards so our team can reflect on the things that aren't shared with the whole group. So please go ahead. I know you've had a lot of interactions, and the introverts amongst you are saying, please, not one more table discussion. But you are almost to the end of the day. Take heart. You've done very well today. All right, we're going to come back together and share now. We'd like to have one spokesman from each table share one of the main difficulties. And even as you're thinking about who will be the spokesperson, if that spokesperson can try to distill the words down to a very small number of words so that Christina can briefly write what the main challenge has been in mentoring. And maybe we'll start at this side. Yeah, right here.
We have several people at this table who are doing some mentoring with women. And concisely, what we found is that there are people that want to kind of locomotive through the process quickly, and they don't want to take the steps that are necessary to attain what they need to attain to be able to be good facilitators.
Okay. So perhaps overly eager mentees in terms of the process. Looks like we've got Brian back here.
Yes, my mentor, Margie, told me I had to say something. So, something. No, actually, Nancy told me I had to say something. One thing we've been thinking about doing in Dallas that I haven't implemented yet, but I was happy to hear about Thaddeus, getting facilitators together. Not the COP that I talked about that was in Dallas, but facilitators that I particularly am mentoring, and actually get together from time to time and really talk about a specific facilitator skill and have them practice it and do it. It's sort of like continuing education kinds of things, and we'll all learn together. And I think that would really be helpful. And one or two of them that I mentioned it, he said, yeah, that would really be good.
So that would be one of the innovations that you'd want to do to address a difficulty of the need for.
Yeah, some facilities need to be a little bit more lively or dynamic, when they're up in front. They're not be quite as bad as me. But, and that's one skill of just putting yourself out there just a little bit more, or learning how to manage your time better and just not getting flustered. Oh, but we didn't do that part and all that stuff. Learning to go with the flow. Those kinds of things I think can be learned, and including holding the microphone.
Right. So right now the mentees often lack the opportunity for skill development. We train them for 4 or 5 days, but then there really isn't another opportunity for us to be working face to face with them in developing those skills. Great. Excellent. Maybe on this side? Okay, Mindy.
We had a couple people at our table that said, we didn't know we had a mentor.
Yes. Enough said right there. Lack of clarity on who is my mentor. Yep. Excellently said. Anybody else? Another challenge. Okay.
I'll add with that then expectations of what that's to look like.
Yes.
If there is a
expectations.
mentoring relationship, what would it be the expectation of the mentor
Yes.
to them, and then from the mentee,
Yes.
what they can expect? Is it informal? Is it a little bit more formal? How often? And maybe that's just going to be something that they work out together.
Yep.
But I know I've been through 2 trainings where I've been a trainer, but we haven't determined any kind of mentor-mentee relationship in any discussion.
Excellent. So the expectations are not stated. That means a mentee may have been mentored in some way in some different program in the past where they had really robust mentorship, and that's their expectation of what their mentor is going to do. But then if the mentor doesn't even really know who their mentees are, that's going to be a problem. Great. Maybe 1 or 2 more of the difficulties.
Hi. In Haiti, I trained a group of women, and I think the bond that we shared during the time was just so strong that they wanted to stay connected. And if anybody knows anything about WhatsApp is where it's at. And so through WhatsApp, I'm able to stay in contact with them. They have gone ahead and formed their own circle of network of women, and as a group of women trained in trauma, they stayed together. They meet monthly, every Friday,
Beautiful.
3rd Friday of every month. And they send me their agenda and whatever questions they may have, they send it to me to get my feedback and what have you. But there's 3 tiers of mentoring. There's the bottom-up mentoring, there's horizontal mentoring, there's the top-down mentoring. And so where I can't be there, but as they come together, they'll say things like, do it like Betty did it. Because that's what mentoring is about, really modeling what you've seen. And so they'll practice the material, and they'll train one another, and they'll give each other feedback. They'll talk about different places that they've gone, that they actually, maybe they went and ministered to someone and practiced some of the pieces of the trauma material, and they share with one another. And then when they're able to kind of get in contact with me, that's the top-down mentoring. And then when they're helping somebody else in their local church, or that's kind of the bottom, from them to the bottom. So there's different levels of mentoring, and I think it's probably an important piece if we really want to make sure that this training doesn't wane, because my concern was it does wane. Without the connection of the initial instructor, the desire and it just goes away because you just don't know practically what to do with the material. So I think it is a responsibility to make sure that the material really does go as far as we want it to go, or else it just becomes a book stuffed in somebody's library, and they really can't use it because they're not empowered enough to go further. So mentoring is about empowering.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So the difficulty ends up being that if they don't have mentoring support, the interest will wane. And then the innovation that we could flip to the next page, one of the things, using WhatsApp, and that's going to be one of the next slides, and then encouraging the formation of a local gathering, a local community of practice of those people that have been trained, that they would start getting together. And I love it that they're sending you the agenda in advance. And then also addressing 3 levels of mentorship: bottom up, horizontal, and top down, so that we don't view it as only a top down responsibility, but that we could help them, and perhaps that could be part of the trainings near the end of the training. All right, in order for this to carry forward, we're going to need to support one another. What are you going to do in terms of bottom up or horizontal mentoring? What am I going to commit to do for you all in the top down? So if it were more collaborative, that could really help maintain that interest. Let's switch then to more of the innovations that you have come up with to make the mentoring process go more smoothly. Hopefully there are some innovations. People could just be exhausted and tucked out.
Skype is great.
Skype is great.
Skype is great. Yeah, I mean, Skype conversations, if they're not local, has been huge.
Wonderful. So Renee, not being in the same city or location as the training, you can Skype in as the mentor. Do they all gather in one place?
As a mentee.
As a mentee.
I've been mentored by people who've Skyped in.
Excellent.
Like we'll set up a time and we'll Skype and.
Yep.
I mean, I had someone who wasn't even a part of any of my training, but I came across her in Ukraine when she was visiting, and we hit it off, and she helped counsel me through leading teens.
Beautiful.
And she wasn't designated to me, but the Lord led her, and it was great. But Skype has been great using that technology. Mm-hmm.
Great point. Using the technology when we're not in the location of the person. What else for good innovations? There was more difficulties apparently. Yeah? I'll give you a couple more moments to share anything, and then if not, we'll move on. All right, I would love it if all of the papers upon which you wrote the difficulties and innovations, I would like to have those. So if you can put them in the center of your table, and then when we finish, I'll come around and collect those. So let me show you some of the things that have come up in this last year and a half, at least that I've been here, ways that people are troubleshooting some of the challenges in mentoring. A month ago or so, we tried the Grand Rapids experiment, and it was the idea that you do need to assign the mentor very intentionally during the training. So with my silly little diagram here, we had 3 facilitators, the 3 smiley faces at the top, and we had a group of 36 participants, which is typical. So we assigned a mentor to 12 people, another mentor to the other 12 people, and the last mentor to the other 12 people sitting at their tables of 6. And we said, okay, I am the mentor for you 12. Here is my email address. I'm going to send you a group email after this training, so you'll be able to communicate with me easily. The other person did the same thing. Here's my email, here's my email. In Guatemala recently when we did this, it was really sweet. The groups ended up having pictures taken of their mentee group with their mentor, and so it was very personal to them. We're instructing the mentees to then email the mentor when they start their healing group. So the mentor knows that the healing groups are starting, because otherwise we have no idea if it's happening or not. We're also asking the mentee, when they finish their group, to send the mentor their report for their healing group. So the mentor can look at it, give comments on it, and then the mentee can submit their healing group report to THI or to whoever the program coordinator is, if you're with one of the alliance partners. The mentor is also committing, of course, to answer the mentee's questions. What I'm finding so far is if I've got 12, there may be 2 amongst the 12 who start emailing at me and saying, I'm doing my groups, and some who are very eager. But most of the others aren't going to be emailing me and maybe aren't starting a group. So I'm committing as their mentor to at least once send out an email to those who haven't started their group. You know, in the next 6 months or 9 months, I will email them at least once just to find out, are you planning on starting a group? If not, is there anything that I can provide to help you? So this is an idea for those of you who are doing trainings to intentionally assign the mentor right there at the training so that each person leaves there and knows that person is my mentor and I can communicate with them. That's one idea that has emerged. The next, Betty already mentioned it, WhatsApp. We actually learned about this first through the Bible Society of Burundi, who started using WhatsApp to communicate with their trainees. And we loved what we were hearing, and we started trying it. For those of you who don't know what WhatsApp is, and I didn't know about it beforehand, this is an app that you can put on your phone. It's free, and it's a way for people to text, make phone calls, send images to each other with no charge, and it's used widely in the international context. In the US, it's not used very much, but more and more people are using it. It's stunning to see people in quite rural areas that are using WhatsApp. And again, I went down to Guatemala, wasn't sure. Almost everybody had it on their phone. We formed a WhatsApp group during the training, getting permission from everybody first to include them in the WhatsApp group. You should not just say, we've already formed a WhatsApp group and you're all on it. No, got to get permission from them first. Then they already started posting pictures during the training, and the community and the enthusiasm that had been starting to form in the training was carried forward. During the training, you should have your group form their own WhatsApp rules and guidelines. How are they going to use this? Are they going to use it to promote their newest beauty product that they're selling on the side? Or is it just going to be trauma healing content? And then if in their rules they don't come up with, we need to make sure that we get group authorizations signed by people in our healing groups before we snap pictures of them and post the pictures on WhatsApp. It's important to emphasize that to them, that we can't use WhatsApp to just take pictures of our groups and share them with everyone. So this is another way that you can reinforce the importance of confidentiality and getting those authorizations. It's been stunning to use this so far, so I really encourage you to do it. SIM in Charlotte has been sending a quarterly newsletter to all of the people that they've trained, where there's important reminders about how to do trauma healing, and they send that out via MailChimp. So that's another way you can communicate with your mentees in a regular way. SIL in Dallas has developed monthly meetings of kind of the local community of practice. And they meet for continuing education, reading books, like Brian had said. They have been reading Body Keeps the Score, discussing hard cases that are coming up. If possible, you could Skype or live stream it for people that are not able to attend in person. That would be a great option. And then, in the case of a facilitator flying to another country, doing a training, returning, perhaps the local people could gather once a month, and you as the facilitator could just Skype in. And maybe if there were 3 facilitators, you guys could share the load. I'll do the first month, you do the second month, you do the third month. So it wouldn't be very cumbersome. Lastly, for those that were in the experience track yesterday, you got to see the exciting the remodeled facilitator site and how great that is. That's another aspect of mentoring. Use that facilitator site, right? And encourage your mentees to use it as well. If they email you to say, where's the certificate for the participation certificate for healing groups, please don't just send it to them. Point them to the site and help them learn how to find it, because we want to empower them to do this well on their own. Lastly, if you're doing a training, or if you were someone who attended a training and you didn't get access to that site, the way you can get access to that facilitator site is sending an email to traumahealing@americanbible.org. It will actually end up in Christina's hands, and she will send an invitation with a login and a password to that site. So again, if you're doing a training and you think, I want to make sure that near the end of the training, all of my trainees have received an invitation in their email box to access this site, just make sure you email us at this address before your training. Send us the list of your participants with their email addresses and their names. And then we can get that plugged in, send the invitation to the trainees before your training even finishes. So those are the things that we're starting to see emerging as helpful ways to mentor people, and just tools that we can use to make it a better relationship, and one that we can really ensure that people do have what they need to do these groups. They're encouraged, and that they're more likely to not do harm or to deviate significantly from the program model because they feel supported. So again, I'm going to come around and collect your ideas, and we look forward to developing this aspect of the program much more in the years to come. Thank you.
Anybody tired yet? You can go on for hours, right? Yeah. Hopefully you've noticed that we have done something somewhat intelligently where we span out to talk about a topic that really relates to everyone, whether you're doing this material or not. And then other times we drill in, like we just did here, on mentoring. So this morning we were thinking about the issues of the combination of authority and vulnerability, and that applies to all of our lives, no matter what we're doing. And then we drilled into contextualization about some of the very specific things that we might want to do in this particular program. Right? We come back out to look at the issues of financing and economy and culture and power in sustainable programs, and that can really apply to anything, anywhere. In fact, my wife has been watching, and she said, hey, this could really relate to how we fund our kids' education. So we're going to have a conversation about that, I think. I'm looking forward to it. We're now pulling back out. So while this title here you'll see is The Power of the Facilitator, if you are not a facilitator in the Healing Wounds of Trauma materials and the Mission Trauma Healing, that's okay. You can cross out facilitator and insert counselor, therapist, pastor, leader. Because in whatever context that you have as a position over other people in ministry, you have power. And so we are going to step back and think again about the issues of power and how we utilize it. I will use in these slides thinking more of the language of facilitator, but some of you aren't, and that's okay. You can make that application. All right, so what is our one goal? Our one goal is to create safe spaces for traumatized peoples. No matter your context, you want safe spaces because safe spaces are the beginning of healing. If you can't have safety and trust, then nothing good will follow. And whatever it appears to be will fall apart. And if you are obviously training other people, we don't just want to create safe spaces for traumatized people, but we want to reproduce other people who are going to be safe people. This is a conversation that a number of us, including Karine, has been talking about. How do we ensure that those that we train are also safe people? Right? We want there to be a good flow. We want to make sure that the healing groups are good places. That's really our one goal. We can talk about contextualization. We can talk about, could this lesson be better? Could we add or subtract? But really it comes down to this, and if it can be overwhelming to think about this, but I will just encourage you that the Holy Spirit takes our two little coins and multiplies them in ways that we can't imagine. So it's not just up to us, but for the little bit that's up to us, we want to ask those questions. Well, what does it mean to be a safe person or a safe healing group leader? These are people who can do a variety of things, but ultimately they can listen well. Right? They can validate stories. If you've ever told your story to somebody and they quickly jump from your story to their story, you probably didn't feel very validated and you didn't talk any further. But so can this person listen and validate and encourage? Can they navigate conflict? Or do they always have to be right? This is essential. Do they know their limits, or do they think they can fix everything, respond to everyone, solve every problem? Do they know how to support lament? Right? Lament is a key feature in the Healing Wounds of Trauma material, learning to lament well. Do they know how, even in the midst of lament, to connect people to God? Again, that's not telling sort of the big pictures, let go and let God kinds of things. It's actually sometimes the connections are very, very tiny steps. Being present. Do they know how to keep confidence? The last thing you want to do is see your story advertised as a wonderful way that this material can help without your permission. Along with these skills and capacities, we want in the Healing Wounds of Trauma material especially that it be participatory, right? So part of the power that we want to see our facilitators and our healing group leaders to have is to be able to encourage conversation, not to be the center of attention. So this little image up here comes out of the, I think it's the handbook that's in. And just as a reminder that our job is not to be telling people, but asking questions, encouraging dialogue, not just from the front out, and not just back and forth as if we're doing individual group work with people, but getting them to talk amongst themselves, right? And then just adding where we need to, rather than being the expert. So that's really what we want, of course, to use our power well. Here's what I want you to do now at your table groups. We talked a little bit about this at the end of, or partway through, Dr. Langberg's session yesterday. Seems like last week, but it was just yesterday. What are some of the powers that you hold as a facilitator? Let's be specific here. See on this list, some of them are, you have the power to name things. There's a definitional power. You get to name things as good or bad, right or wrong. You decide who gets to speak and who you're going to shut down. All right? These are, whether you should or shouldn't have the power, you do have it, right? So you get to choose who speaks. You will evaluate. Maybe it'll only be 10-minute teaching, but somebody's going to decide whether or not you qualify for that certificate. So there's power there. You bring knowledge of the program, knowledge of trauma. Whether you want to or not, you're going to be seen as speaking for God. Because there's going to be some doctrinal debate, some issue, and all eyes are going to come to you. How are you going to respond? You're going to set the agenda. You're going to be some of the gatekeeper on it, right? There's a cultural privilege that often comes with the person at the front. You get to decide whose culture reigns supreme. And then, of course, if you come from outside that local culture, you may have a colonial-oriented power, whether you want it or not. That kind of comes with you. And then, of course, we talked yesterday, Diane talked yesterday about the emotional power that a leader has as well. So these are just some examples. Those are not all the examples. What I want you to do at your tables is to take a few minutes just to ask, when you're leading, which one of these forms of power are you most aware that you hold? And which ones are you less aware that you hold, and maybe sometimes even forget that that's how people see you? Okay? So we'll give you just a few minutes just to examine those. Okay. This was just to stimulate some of your thinking, but I'm curious, did you guys have similar lists, similar things that you were most aware, least aware of, different? That's a different set of questions, but also could have good fodder for conversation, because some of them we're happy to have and other ones we wish we didn't have, but we do, right? What we're trying to do here is sensitize ourselves to what power we actually hold. Since Ganeba has the microphone, let's find out. Let's pick on this table over here on the left, because some of my students are there. Which ones did you guys most? Oh, very good. Which power did you realize you are most aware of and least aware of? What was your table talking about? Yeah, that was a misuse of
Or
my power,
least
right?
aware of. I know I was given an example for, it wasn't the agenda of the day, but we were doing a healing group with the Congolese refugees in Philadelphia. And when we went the first 2 weeks, myself and the other two ladies, we were both dressed like business casual, like pretty much how you would dress today, didn't think anything of it. And some of them were in their traditional outfits, and it was beautiful. They looked awesome. And some of them were just in whatever you wear on Saturday morning that you throw on for a healing, you know, for a Bible study. So by the third week, I caught on, wow, I'm kind of overdressing, and it might make them feel a little bit uncomfortable, you know? So I kind of switched it up, and another lady switched it up. And we got there, they had dressed up. Like they, you know? So they switched up. In fact, we had the honor of seeing the one lady in her first pair of regular pants. And she was so excited. We took pictures, so excited. But yeah, so we didn't know we were setting the tone. So then I just went back to dressing decent, you know. It's nice.
Attire, great. Anybody else want a quick story like that? Charles.
I think concerning knowledge, it comes strongly to you, the facilitator, because trauma healing is quite a new thing to pastors and or probably whoever you're organizing for, and so they come with high expectation. What is it about? Convening sessions, and so you, the facilitator, tends to wield some enormous knowledge over them, and that is what I'm particularly aware of.
The knowledge, yeah, excellent. Okay, so let's just remember, this is good. We're going to come back and talk about these, or one particular form of power in just a minute. So we'll come back to this slide with a slightly different question. I want to remind you of what Diane talked to us about yesterday. Our power is derivative, right? It is delegated power. We are the tenants. We are stewarding this power, it's not ours. And so just as that reminder, this last couple of weeks, our church is going through the last week of Jesus' life, and we're using the book of Mark in Mark 11 and 12. And Jesus clears the temple. That doesn't make a whole lot of people happy, at least the people in power. And one of their key questions, as our pastor put it, was they came to Jesus, "Who do you think you are, clearing the temple like this?" And so Jesus comes up with telling this parable of the owner and the tenants, right? In God's kingdom, we can sometimes get confused about who's the owner. We're the tenants, but we start thinking of ways about how we can take over ownership. Maybe we don't think about killing, but here's one way that we might think about that. What happens when the people we're serving aren't quite so grateful, aren't quite so content with what we're doing? So we will look at that in just a minute about when they push back and dissent. And you may want to think about this question is, when there's some dissent, what happens inside of me? What's my go-to reaction? Okay? All right, so, but before we get there, just want to remind you, there are a number of things we can do as stewards of power, right, of the power that we have. The first one off is we take, as it's been said here before, a learning posture. That means we have curiosity about the folks that we're working with. And we have the motivation to go find out the answers, to ask questions, to engage. And that learning posture as a student first, not expert first, suggests that we ask questions not just about what's wrong with people and their communities, but actually what they value, what they're proud of, what is working well. So it's a strengths assessment. In asking these kinds of questions and engaging a community about what they do well, we are giving back power. We are sharing power about what is good and write and things that might actually teach and even maybe rebuke me on things that I need to learn, right? So these are little things that we can do. We obviously can give lots of good information about the training that we might be doing. We've talked about this at our tables at various times over the last 2 days, that with the lack of information, people are confused about what we might be doing. And when they're confused, they shut down or begin to think it's something other and can create a lot of problems. So the more people know about it going into a training, then the more they have the right to consent. They know what they're consenting to and can to either agree or get out, right? These are their options. Looking for ways to support both local decisions. We talked about that earlier with contextualization. And also that means also supporting local leadership. It's not a one-way street where local leadership and local decisions decide everything. Brian talked about protecting the integrity of the program. So it's a two-way street going back and forth, but by even asking the questions and by giving power back to local leaders and to make decisions, we are keeping that two-way street open. So those are all the things that you all know. So the one that I want to focus on in the remaining time is this inviting pushback. Especially if you are an outsider speaking, teaching, and training, and you've traveled from some ways away and brought your expertise and maybe your economic power to play by the organization that you represent. A lot of people around the world tend to be polite. So we'll just nod and agree. Now, not everybody does that, but a lot of people will. Even when you're doing something that's not particularly working, and you'll find out later. So how do we go about encouraging pushback, dissent? So first off, and maybe we can have a couple people pop up as popcorn. Let's be honest. How do we feel when somebody begins to give us that pushback, that dissent over what we might be doing? We've got this wonderful program. It's perfect in every way. How dare you? No. Absolutely, but when they do, Mona, are you having a feeling about that? That we have come in. Okay. Maybe. So I'm asking the first question, when people, and by the way, we could have another whole question which says, how do you know when people are wanting to push back? What are some of the subtle signs that they aren't in agreement? Right? There's a variety of questions here, but my question to you, though, is how do you feel when they begin? Defensives is one. Carol, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I didn't want to answer that question.
Answer whatever question you wish.
Pushback. I wanted to just emphasize how important I think this is. And, you know, if you don't have a good system in place so that you can get feedback and complaints is, you know, what we're talking about, then your organization and your ministry is at so much risk for someone who possibly is doing harm to the very people that you're trying to help. And it's so important to have that kind of a mechanism, a complaints response mechanism in place. And so I know it may put you on the defensive and feel like we don't want to know the bad stuff, but sometimes when you unpack a complaint, you realize somebody voiced something because there's something really wrong and evil going on underneath it all. Right. So you've got to be open to that.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment on just the feelings that you might have or why this is so important?
Phil, I think maybe sometimes we are concerned about pushback because we're afraid we might lose control of the class.
Sure.
And I can tell you in a jail setting that can be a real deal. It can be a real fiery thing. Things can escalate so quickly. So I can be real honest with you. I would not encourage pushback. And I mean, if they want to voice something, that's fine. But it can get scary and kind of out of control.
So let me push back on you a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree in a group setting. I have worked in a jail setting, and I recognize that that could be an invitation for a riot or a mini riot. But you can have one-on-one pushback. So you might end up having a one-on-one conversation after a meeting and invite it in a different way that doesn't create a group attack. Brian's hands up.
Yeah, you can also have at the end of each day, each session, or whatever you're doing, have periodic times where you get feedback written. And that way they can be, they don't have to be out exposed, but then you can follow it up by a one-on-one thing. If you wait till the end of the course, that's also good, but then it may be too late to deal with something. So if you did it like at the end of the day, take 10 minutes. Do you have any feedback you'd like to give us?
Right, so Brian's read my slides and he's going to the next one already. And so here's the question that I want you to be thinking about: how you can encourage pushback and model this empowerment in your work. And here's the reason why you want to. Traumatized people can become paralyzed. They can become hopeless. And when they are invited to heal and grow, they can even become resistant to that because that's a little scary for them. Resistance is actually the sign of growth and the beginnings of healing, because that means they're invoking their power to not do something. We want to encourage even more of that power setting. So it's an important step in the healing process for a person to begin thinking, to begin challenging, to question. That's an important part. Now, your job is to think in your context, how do we encourage this? Because you may be in a context where it's impossible for someone to say to a leader something that could be deemed critical. There are other ways. So, in 5 minutes, you need to brainstorm and think about how you might encourage this in your context. Okay? At your tables. Go. Okay, we need to come back. Not nearly enough time to talk about this, and not nearly enough time to get your great examples. So I encourage you over dinner tonight and other times to tell your funny stories of pushback and dissent that you received and how you handled them. Maybe not the not so funny ones too. One little example. You are working in an environment where you know the participants will never, it would be shameful to ever say anything that might offend or demean the speaker, you. So how are you ever going to get this feedback? Is to have the conversation in a slightly different way. Instead of from the front, being in a more informal environment and say, if somebody from outside were to come here and to do a training and it wasn't going well, how would they know? What would be some of the ways that it might get communicated? Are there any culturally safe ways for someone to share that? So you're not even talking about yourself yet. It's all about your friend over here who might have a problem, right? A third party. Are there examples where somebody came in and did something that wasn't helpful, and then did it get corrected? What was the response? Are there examples of somebody who came in and it wasn't helpful and then it got fixed? You can learn. One of the questions that we counselors ask when we're doing a brand new person coming in for therapy is we ask, what have you tried in the past? What was helpful? What was harmful? What do you want to make sure we don't ever do? These are ways that you help somebody give voice to something that's not a direct, why are you doing X, and doesn't feel so confrontive. Okay, we have given you a lot to think about, and there's more to go tonight. I really do hope that you'll all come to watch the documentary tonight. There's a few snowflakes out there, but don't let that deter you. Those are just there for good looks. It's not really doing anything harm out there. So with that, it is time for our expressive digestion of the day. Mary Beth. Yeah.
All right, would you stand up? Stretch a little bit. I would encourage you to take a really deep breath. Yeah. And you might want to shake it out a little bit. Good, good, good. Yeah. Now take a deep breath again. And have a seat. You're going to sit just for a moment. But what I'd like you to do is take a moment and think about the day. This, again, was a full journey today. So just take a moment, reflect on the day, and think about a few key points that really impacted you today. All right. Hopefully you have at least one or two you've been able to capture, or maybe you've just been able to rest your mind. That's okay too. I want to invite you into an opportunity to express this again. We started that yesterday. Yesterday we did it in groups. And in many countries that we work in, many cultures we work in, that is the best way for them to process things. Often in our area of work, we'll invite people to think on their own, and they'll immediately start talking together with others. So they're not as individualists, they're more collective in their style. Today, I'm going to give you more of a choice for what you feel comfortable with. Okay, so we're going to have some different sections of the room set up so that we can do some artistic or expressive expressions today. I do want to clarify that when we say artistic, we don't mean that you have to be an artist or even skilled in any of these areas. It's just a way to share more and to use the right side of the brain a little bit more and connect more with the kinds of things that are at the emotive level or the feeling level. Okay? All right, so here are your choices for today. One is to do a drama or movement expression. Those of you interested in that could work with Brian back here. No, you will be working with Bethany, and she'll be over in this side of the room. Now, I want to encourage you as I bring up these, think about what would stretch you. What would be fun? This would, if you're not familiar with doing movement or dramatic expression, this would be a great opportunity to try it. And we're going to have structure in each of these so you won't be just asked to dance or something. Okay, so that's Bethany, and Bethany will be in that back area of the room. Okay, the next one is poetic or sound expression. And Todd will be inviting you into that over here on this side of the room. All right, then we have visual expression, collective. Now, all of these are collective, just so you know. It means you'll work in groups to do this. And this is much like we did yesterday. And some of you mentioned to me that you had some anxiety about yesterday and the activity, and you were so excited to see it succeed that you'd like to try it again. So those of you who want to, you could do that. Then, that's right, with Brian. That's right, back in that section of the room. Now, for others of you, In this part of the room, I'm going to invite you into an individual expression. And you can choose whatever medium you'd like to use, except you cannot use your cell phones or computers, okay? You need to really choose an expressive form. And we'll talk about that over here in this group. All right? So what I'd like to ask you to do is to get up from your tables and to go to an area that most appeals to you. Those of you at home, you choose one of these and follow through on them. We're going to come back together. Just for our closing time, I hope you each got to pray together in your groups, but I want you to observe or witness the expression of the movement group because they didn't have anyone to show theirs to. The rest of you had a chance to share yours. So would you come up here to do this? They'll come and we're going to be witnesses for their expression.
Well, our group certainly didn't want to do anything small group anymore. So we rather just one large group. We were one today, and it was very healing, and I think in a lot of ways. It just helped us to conclude the day and summarize the day. And we kind of came together with 3 movements that helped us to kind of process some of the major themes that we took in today, such as authority and vulnerability. The first movement, it'll express our thinking and what we believe about authority and vulnerability. The second movement speaks to growth and growing together. And the final movement just speaks about the pushback that we talked about, and it's a way that we find there's community, there's a rhythm in the pushback. And so that's what we're going to express today.